What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be giving you my Big Ten power rankings after week one. Now, my original plan was to have these uploaded on Mondays, but I think I'm going to switch these over to Tuesdays just to give me more time with my schedule and everything. So they will be uploaded on Tuesdays, just a small little change, but feel like it should be made aware. Decided to go with a little headband today. You can tell me if you like it down in the comments below. But today we are going to be going through my personal power rankings for week one in the Big Ten. This is my personal opinion, and the way that power rankings usually work is you move up with a win or down with a loss. That's just usually how it works. So let's go ahead and get right on into it. In at number 14 is the Maryland Terrapins, or what I have dubbed as right now the worst team in Big Ten football. And nothing that was shown against Northwestern would prove you otherwise. They lost 30-43. They could not get any offense going, only put up 208 yards. Talia, the quarterback, brother of Tua Tagovailoa, he just couldn't get anything going. Didn't even have 100 passing yards, threw 3 picks as well. Maryland just all around did not play a great effort at all. Now this week they get to play Minnesota, and that's going to be a Friday game. I don't see how they're going to be able to win that one either, although it is at home. Tough times are ahead for the Maryland Terrapins if they're going to continue this streak. They just have to improve pretty much everything on the field. Until they do that, they're number 14. Moving down one spot from last week. I should mention that as well. Also moving down one spot from last week is the Michigan State Spartans, in which the table I have here does not show it. Yes, of course, they lost to Rutgers 27-38, and they get Michigan next week. So a very, very hard game coming up for the Michigan State Spartans. But they had 7 turnovers in this game. I really did debate putting them but they had 7 turnovers in that game against Rutgers. I really did debate putting them below Maryland, but I ended up not doing that, and Michigan State is here at number 13 because other than the 7 turnovers, they looked fairly decent. About 375 yards and 27 points. That's not a bad effort. But that 7 turnovers really, really killed them in this game. Without any of those turnovers, that game might have played out a lot differently. But, of course, the 7 turnovers. And I keep mentioning it because it's just an insane – it's a crazy number to me. Like, 7 turnovers is a lot. That is a lot of turnovers. So we'll have to see if Michigan State can bounce back against their rival Michigan. This game is always usually pretty close. Going to be in an empty big house, though. But Michigan State, again, under first-year head coach Mel Tucker, they just got to improve. And they have to hold on to the ball, and they're not going to move up until I can see that. So this week, they're number 13. At number 12 is the Illinois Fighting Illini. They are also dropping 1 spot from last week's rankings after a loss to Wisconsin, 7-45, and they get Purdue this week. Just not a good effort from Illinois at all either. Brandon Peters really struggled, and the only points scored for Illinois were a defensive touchdown. They only got 218 yards while allowing 430, albeit Graham Mertz looked really, really well. We'll talk about Wisconsin later in this video. But Illinois just seemed to their offense just couldn't get anything going. And that has to improve. Illinois' offense has potential. We've seen it. We saw it in the big comeback last year against Michigan State. We saw it last year against Wisconsin. But this year against Wisconsin, it did not show out. And there's a lot of potential on this Illinois team. And I think it just has to show. Against Purdue, it could be a tricky game for Illinois, but they get it at home. They might feel more comfortable. And it's against in what most people consider a lesser opponent than what Wisconsin was, albeit Purdue looked good in their game too. But Illinois drops 1 spot to number 12. They just need to get some offense going, and they can move up. At number 11 is the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, who won their first Big Ten game since 2017. They move up 3 spots. So from last place to 11th place are the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Of course, I just talked about a little bit ago. They beat Michigan State 38-27. They face Indiana next week. That could be a fairly interesting game, and I will preview that more on Thursday. But 38 points, and they were outgained by almost 100 yards. But again, a lot of those 7 turnovers were pretty much forced. A lot of punching the ball out. Rutgers was very, very aggressive, and they looked, albeit they looked great on both sides of the ball. Rutgers really did look pretty good. Now they're going to face a much tougher Indiana team next week, and they had 3 turnovers on their own, so they could probably improve on ball security as well. But Noah Vedral played great. Isaiah Pacheco played. I mean, this Rutgers team has a lot of potential with Greg Schiano back there at head coach, and they move up 3 spots. I wouldn't be surprised if Rutgers can raise it some more. They had a fairly decent game. We'll have to see how they perform against Indiana, but for right now, I'm going to set them at number 11. Here at number 10 are the Iowa Hawkeyes. They are dropping a spot after their loss to Purdue. I think it should be 2 spots, right? Yeah, it should be 2. Yeah, it should be 2. So I have an 8. All right, here at number 10 are the Iowa Hawkeyes, dropping 2 spots from where they were last week. Why'd they drop? Well, it's because they lost. They lost at Purdue 20-24, and I take nothing away from Iowa in that game. It was an incredible effort, although they do have to get Amir Smith-Marset more involved. I think he only had 2 carries for 18 yards, didn't even have a pass. But the running game was prominent for Iowa. Spencer Petras was throwing the ball to everyone. But Purdue just played well. So take nothing away from Iowa. Definitely could improve a little bit on the defensive side. But Spencer Petras looked good. I expect him to only get better as they get Northwestern this week at home. Could be an interesting game there, but again, like I said, their offense looks great. 460 total yards against Purdue. The one thing about it is their passing attack just needs to improve. And if Iowa's passing attack can improve, they're going to be a pretty solid team this year. But they do drop 2 spots because of the loss. I take nothing away from Iowa in that game. But, yeah, just that passing attack is improved. That running attack's going to be there with Mekhi Sargent and Tyler Goodson. It's going to be there and prominent, and it was in this game against Purdue. Spencer Petras just got to throw it to the end zone. I don't believe he had a pick in that game either. So Iowa's overall played solid. Just got to get some stuff figured out, and they can jump higher in these power rankings, but they're going to sit at number 10. And at number 9, also dropping 2 spots, are the Nebraska Cornhuskers after losing to Ohio State 17-52. And I've already talked about Nebraska as I did my fan reaction, but I take nothing away from Nebraska either. And there was some shoddy officiating in this game. But again, much like Iowa, Nebraska's got to get that passing game going. The run game was very prevalent if you're a quarterback, Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey. Nebraska's got to get some stuff figured out, but they held their own against Ohio State for a good 20 minutes there right at the beginning. 17 points, 370 yards. Nebraska, I think, can only go up from where they played at Ohio State. They get Wisconsin this week, so a tough matchup against Wisconsin, especially because their secondary is going to be without 2 key guys because they got ejected for targeting in the second half. Again, the refs were pretty much calling everything against Nebraska and nothing against Ohio State. It was some skewed officiating. I don't agree with it by any means, but we'll have to see if Nebraska can bounce back from a loss and maybe pull out the upset against Wisconsin. But they did drop 2 spots and are going to sit firmly at number 9. At number 8, moving up a spot, is the Purdue Boilermakers with a win against Iowa 24-20. Their next game is going to be against Illinois. Again, 24 points, 386 yards. They looked really good without Rondale Moore. I will say that. Without Rondale Moore, I was kind of skeptical of Purdue. I still picked the upset there. I almost switched over to Iowa at the last second, but Purdue I stuck with it, and they ended up winning. David Bell played a lot. David Bell played really good, and you saw there with Horvath. Sorry, I almost couldn't think of his name. You saw there with Horvath, the running attack could get going for Purdue, but it looks like Aiden O'Connell is going to be that quarterback. Purdue, I think, just got to work on defense, and that's what's been plaguing Purdue for quite a bit is their defense. And once I think their defense get figured out, they're going to have Rondell Moore and David Bell. This team is going to be an insane offensive juggernaut. But they're going to sit here at number 8, just got to work out some defensive issues. At number 7, moving up 3 spots and jumping Purdue is the Northwestern Wildcats. They looked really good against Maryland, albeit Maryland might not have that great of a team, but they're going to go on the road to Iowa next week. Again, could be an interesting game. I already talked about it a little bit, but 43 points, 537 yards. They gained the most yards out of any Big Ten team this past week. Northwestern looked really good. Peyton Ramsey was slinging it, throwing it to everyone, doing some of the quarterback run as well. And the running attack was prevalent with Anderson and Bowser at Northwestern. Northwestern is a solid team this year. In the summer, I had underhyped them, and I don't think I overhyped this team in the preseason. This team could do something really special this year. They could be that team in the West that makes a surprise, much like Minnesota did last year. It could also be Purdue. When Northwestern Purdue play each other, that'll be interesting. But this team looks to be really good, and they can only improve on that against Iowa. Just every facet of the game was going for Northwestern. That's why they moved up 3 spots and are sitting firmly at number 7. Now, I almost jumped Northwestern ahead of this team, Minnesota, but I decided that Minnesota was a little bit of a better team, just a little bit more offensive weapons with Tanner Morgan and Rashad Bateman, and they struggled against Michigan. I mean, it wasn't their offense that was struggling. Their offense seemed pretty good, especially with Mohamed Ibrahim in the backfield there. He was great in the backfield for Minnesota. But their defense struggled, and their defense, it shows how much they miss Antoine Winfield. It just shows. 478 yards allowed and 49 points allowed. That's a lot in both categories. They get Maryland next week, so should be considered a week off for Minnesota, but their defense just has to improve. Their offense, I think, is too good for them to drop any lower than number 6 as of right now. But I do think that their defense needs work. I've already said it. It has to improve if Minnesota is going to stay relevant in the Big Ten this year. But as of right now, they're going to sit at number 6. All right, coming in at number 5 and dropping 3 spots from last week is the Penn State Nittany Lions. Yes, that overtime loss to Indiana, 35-36. And it's a big one next week against the Ohio State Buckeyes. Penn State seemingly controlled that game against Indiana, though. 35 points, 488 yards. Just some bad decisions by Sean Clifford. You could tell he just didn't really feel it in that game. It wasn't his game. Overthrew a lot of receivers, got some guys involved. And the big thing for Penn State is now they're going to be without some key players on defense. Micah Parsons, of course, is the one that comes to mind. They still have some good safeties and linebackers there, but I think the big concern for Penn State right now is that running back. We already know Journey Brown might be missing the entirety of the 2020 season due to injury and other complications, but now Noah Cain looks like he's not going to be healthy either, so Penn State's down to their 3rd-string running back, which if you saw Ohio State against Nebraska, the running game was what Nebraska was able to exploit. So the Penn State Nittany Lions need to find a running back fast if they're going to want to make a game out of Ohio State. Again, I'll talk about that more on Thursday, but that's the big concern if you're a Penn State fan right now. If not, you can tell me your other concerns in the comment section below if you are a Penn State fan. But they are going to sit at number 5. I think they just have too much talent to drop any further. Coming in at number 4 is the team that beat Penn State 36-35 in overtime. It's the Indiana Hoosiers, moving up 2 spots from where they were last week. Penn State seemed to control that game, but Indiana capitalized off turnovers. And although their offense only got 211 yards, I think this offense is better than the stats show. This offense is definitely better than the stats show. Michael Penix played amazing. Watt Fillier played well. And Stevie Scott just proves that he is tough to bring down. The only thing that I think Indiana can improve upon is the defense. I think the linebacking core looked pretty good, but again, giving up that pass. There was a deep shot to Jahan Dotson that I think could have been easily defended if the defender would have kept with him. The line, I think, just has to get more pressure. There are some things to fix on the defense for Indiana. But other than that, Indiana is a solid team, and I think beating Penn State just proved that they were underhyped in the preseason. This team, I think, could do some good things this year. And as of right now, are contenders in the Big Ten East as they move up 2 spots to number 4 in my power rankings. Moving up a spot to number 3 is the Michigan Wolverines. A lot of people had doubts about this team, and after a 49-24 win on the road, I don't think a lot of people have doubts anymore. Michigan State is going to be their next opponent for Paulie there. Apologies. But their next game is going to be against Michigan State, the rivalry in state. 49 points, 478 yards in that effort against Minnesota. And what an effort it was. It was their offensive system with Joe Milton coming out. And they looked great. Every facet of the game was working for Michigan. Defense maybe could have some slight adjustments here and there, but Michigan, I think the overreaction is going to be Michigan is a title contender and a contender in the Big Ten. I don't know if I'd necessarily go that far yet. Minnesota already had a lot of questions on defense. So we'll have to see when Michigan plays a team like Indiana or Penn State or Wisconsin that they really are true contenders. But Michigan does move up a spot. I was impressed with the Wolverines in week 1. Again, Michigan State is their next game. They're at number 3. Number 2 is the Wisconsin Badgers. They move up a spot after their big win against Illinois, 45-7, and they have to go on the road to Nebraska their next game. And Graham Mertz looks like he's going to be out with COVID for at least the next 3 weeks. I don't know who their third-string quarterback is. I know a lot of people were excited about Graham Mertz, but it does not look like he's going to be playing as of right now. I know as of recording this, he's waiting on a second positive test, but it does not look like he's going to be playing, which could lead to some struggles in the Wisconsin system. But the running back duo seems to be working with Garrett Groshek and Nikhil Watson. That seems to be working out okay. Again, it's that quarterback position that is going to be prevalent for Wisconsin with Graham Mertz not being able to play. They can get that figured out. They have the makings of a contender, and as of right now, definitely are the front runners in the Big Ten West. I think that's your only concern if you're a Wisconsin fan, right? The defense played really, really well, and we'll have to see what Wisconsin does from here. But they move up a spot to number 2. And there is no change at number 1. It is still the Ohio State Buckeyes, third-ranked team in the nation, a big win against Nebraska, 52-17. It was a slow start, and I already talked about it in my fan reaction, but the concerns for Ohio State are their running game and are the offensive and defensive lines. They have to win the line on both sides of the ball if they're going to be title contenders, and they need a true number 1 running back because at times it looked like Master Teague was it, Trey Sermon was it, maybe even Steele Chambers was it. And I bet you if Marcus Crowley was playing, he would have looked like the guy too. So they do have to figure that out, but Justin Fields, whew, what a playmaker. 52 points, 491 yards for the Buckeyes. Justin Fields was near perfect. The one dropped by Chris Olave in the end zone after landing on his back. It's a hard ball to hold on to. I take nothing away from Justin Fields in this game. He played great. Was their leading rusher as well. Which, if you're an Ohio State fan, is kind of worrying, right? You don't want Justin Fields running the ball too much, but his legs are a huge playmaker. Ohio State seems like they're going to be running away with the Big Ten title again this year if they can only improve upon what they can do. But a big one on the road at Penn State. But the Buckeyes, as of right now, in my opinion, are still the kings of the Big Ten. All right, that's going to do it for my week 1 power rankings here. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like. Also consider subscribing if you are brand new to the channel, or you just enjoy my content and turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. And you can join Tailgate Nation. Also leave a comment down below telling me your thoughts on this video. I always love to hear from you guys. And until Thursday, remember to play hard and tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys again on Thursday. Goodbye.